testing. Okay, great. Well, if you didn't know, we're going to talk about person that likes to just control and grab hold of that. Okay, we have some pointing fingers there. But what happens when you don't have the control, right? That's what we're going to talk about today. When things are not in your control, you cannot just press a button and switch your circumstances. That's what we're going to talk about today. And I think this applies to all of us, the topic going through trials. I was going to play a little game. I'm going to still do it. So please stand up with me. There's a little body break that they do at school. It's called sit down if. So I'm going to say a sentence. If it applies to you, please sit down, okay? Do you drive a car every day? Please sit down, okay? Okay, wow. Wow, we only have a few people left. Do you have kids? Okay, next. Do you work under somebody else's supervision? Okay, that got everybody. Okay, I have more questions, but the purpose was going to be, if you're still standing, you can go because this sermon is not for you, but apparently you all can stay, okay? So congratulations, you all are very likely going through trials, and we continue to do so in the near future. So I think this can be helpful, some helpful things for all of you. So, as you know, we're in a series exploring the book of James. Pastor Ben did the introduction last Sunday. And today my passage is James 1, verses 2 to 12. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. I'll have the text here for you in the NIV, but if you also want to look it up, we will just be going through almost verse by verse. So starting on verse 2. And I have 3 points for you, 3 important things that help us when we go through trials. Number 1 is, oh, okay, you got me. There is, apparently I don't have the control. Okay. That happens in life as well, okay? Okay, I'm going through a trial right now, apparently. Okay, there is purpose in your pain, and we see that in the first verse. There it is, okay. James 1:2, it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." So it says, consider it pure joy. When you go through, not just some trials, a specific type of trials you can rejoice. No, it says many different kinds of trials, right? We are to rejoice. And if we're being honest, that seems a bit like a contradiction. When you're going through a middle of challenges, difficult circumstances, it doesn't feel that the first word to come to mind is joy, right? But James is not telling us that we should feel joyful. He's telling us we should consider it all joy. In the ESV, it says, count it all as joy, which is different from, it's not an emotion, it's a decision of the mind, of the will. It's a choice. And how can we make that choice of counting it all as joy? Well, in verse 3, it gives us the answer. It says, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. So it's producing something. There is a purpose when you're going through a trial. So James says we can rejoice not because the pain feels good. It's not that we are to enjoy the trial per se, going through a difficult circumstances and rejoice in the pain, but we rejoice because there is a purpose. There is something that is being produced as we go through that pain. And probably you remember it says the testing of your faith. That phrase is similar to the one that Peter says in his first letter, chapter 1. He says that your faith is tested like what? Does anybody remember? Like gold. The gold is also tested through fire, right? It's refined. My dad actually had a jewelry shop a few years ago, and he used to do that. He would buy gold, use gold, like rings or bracelets, and then he would take them to a place where they melt the gold. And you know, because the metal is heavier than all the impurities, anything dirt, because of wearing it, rises to the top. And then you can scrape that off, then the metal cools off, and then you have pure gold of a pure quality that what was before, right? That is the same when we're tested, we're put through fire. We don't like that process of going through the fire, but that makes us sometimes, when somebody step on your toes or cut you off in traffic, something rises to the top, right? And it's not the more pure thing. Right? That is meant for you to realize, like, okay, that was inside of me. Now I can kind of realize that, try to scrape that off, and let the remaining gold shine brighter. Okay, so there's a purpose to that, to all the trials. That's an analogy that Peter uses, that James is also probably kind of alluding to the testing. Testing is not meant to produce faith. When it says testing the faith, what testing does is see the faith, the quality of the faith that you already have, to prove if it's strong enough. And in the process, it also strengthens that faith. What comes out is purer, stronger, and more valuable than what went in. I'm going to give you another analogy. Don't show the picture yet. Okay, let's try to guess. There is a place in every city. Maple Ridge has one. And it's a place of suffering. It's a room, big room, full of people and full of machines that cause pain. But people go there. They pay to be there. They're willing to go there, sometimes even multiple times a week. They made a commitment at the beginning of the year, I'm going to go there to suffer. Can anybody take a guess what that place of torture is? Let's reveal. Yes, it is a gym. So people go there. They use all sorts of machines. You can see there, heavy lifting, the running. I don't know the names of all the machines because clearly I don't use them. But they're covered in sweat. They're feeling all their muscles ache. Their lungs are on fire. Do they enjoy that process? Do they go there because they like the pain? No. Why do they go there? Why do people go to the gym? Does anybody of you know why? By personal experience, if you've heard of somebody that would go there. I know there's somebody that works there. Do we have somebody that works there? At the gym? Okay. And they pay money, so they keep coming back. So it's because, again, they have a purpose. The purpose is to strengthen their muscles, to be more healthy. And that's what they rejoice in the process of working out, because they know that putting their muscles to the test produces more strength. They become healthier. They become more what they want to become. And they are willing to endure that discomfort and that pain to get to that goal. And that's what James is telling us about trials. It's not, the pain is not random. It's not pointless. There is a purpose. God is producing something in you. And God can use it. He's not wasting your pain. There is a purpose to it. Now, I know that, especially when going to the most difficult trials, challenges, just the mere fact of knowing that there is a purpose doesn't mean that it takes away your pain. You still have to go through it and you suffer. But there is a difference in suffering and thinking that it's meaningless, that there is no point, and suffering knowing that there is a purpose, that something good is being produced in you. So that's the first point, the testing of your faith. Trials are meant to test your faith, to prove it, to make it stronger, and there is a purpose. So take courage when you go through your trials, because there is a goal, there is a purpose, and your pain is not pointless. There is a purpose to your pain. Now, I debated for a while as to what the name of this second point should be, and in the end I called it, "Don't be a sour orange," okay? So, trials test your faith, and they do have a purpose, but they also require time. And let me tell you a little story which explains a bit why I chose the sour orange analogy. As you know, my wife is pregnant with our second baby that is due in July, just under 3 months now. And she has cravings, right? Pregnant women crave things. And one of the latest cravings that she has is to have fresh oranges in the morning with breakfast. But it has to be a fresh, ripe orange, sweet, because she doesn't want a sour one, unripe. She cuts into it and is like, no, I don't want this, right? And I think we can all relate. When we go to the grocery store and we pick fruit, we all have our tricks to pick the best fruit, right? We smell the strawberry, it's like, yeah, this is a good one. I don't know what your tricks are. You pick up an orange, you look at the color, the weight of it even, how if it's, you can see the skin, if it's opening a bit because there is a lot of juice inside. I don't know about you, but I even take the avocados, press slightly with the fingertips to see if it gives in a bit, and it's like, yeah, this is a good one. This is ready for nachos tonight. So we all have our tricks, and that's why, because we care about the quality of the fruit that we're buying, right? We want the best. We are not happy just with an unripe fruit. And what makes a difference between a ripe fruit and an unripe one? Time, right? You need time to grow. If you pick it up too quickly from the tree, it's going to be not as good. But you need to wait, you need to be patient to the right time, and then you get the fruit. So it is with our lives, with producing good fruit in our lives. It takes time. Through trials, that's the process that we mature, that we grow and develop more perseverance and character. But look at what James says in verse 4. He says, "Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, lacking in nothing." There it is. So it's not enough to go through trials. And you can see that very clearly, because if you just stop in verse 3 and it says, "The testing of your faith produces perseverance," you would think that everybody goes through trials all around the world. So if the mere process of going through suffering would develop a good character in you and patience, everybody would be absolutely patient, because we are tested since the moment we're born. We're already crying and suffering, right? But we can see clearly that's not the case. Merely going through trials doesn't produce that perseverance. That is what James says. Let that perseverance have its full effect, be fully grown like a fruit. Let it develop. Don't take it from the tree too fast, because then it's not going to be ripe. So we need to wait so that we can be mature and complete. That word complete that you see there in James, so that you may mature and complete, is the Greek word, you may have heard of this one, teleios. It's a word that means wholesome, perfect. Sometimes it's translated, I think, in the ESV, complete. And it appears 7 times in the book of James, so it's clearly important, getting to that perfection. But it's not merely, we're not talking about moral perfection. We're talking about a character that is complete, fully grown, developed. That's what God wants to produce in us. And this is difficult for us, especially on the 21st century, because we're used to immediate things, right? Fast food, immediate same-day delivery when you go to Amazon, and you can click, yes, I want it today. So don't even show me options that come tomorrow. I want same-day delivery. We have entertainments at our fingertips. You go to your house, you have the remote, you're in control, you just press what you want to watch, Netflix, Disney, Amazon Prime, Global TV, anything. You just press, search for it. You can even have voice command, and that feels like even more powerful, right? Like, play this to me, and then In your cars, you have your phones. You talk to your phone and it just play whatever music you want. But it's not the same with our lives. When we're producing fruit, spiritual fruit, the same as fruit in a tree, it takes time to grow. We have to be patient to let it develop fully. And sometimes it can feel like it's a painfully slow process. So here's my encouragement to you. Don't pull the fruit off the tree too early. Let perseverance finish its work. Don't be a sour orange, okay? Be a sweet one. Let your fruit be fully grown so that you are complete, lacking in nothing, like James says. So going back to our analogy of the gym, as I said, I'm not very familiar with these machines. I took a class when I was in Michigan in the States. I took a semester, and I had to go to the gym because I had to keep a diary, a log of what I was doing. So I work out, but I've never been a strong guy. But imagine, let's say that I start going to the gym tomorrow, and I start training for a whole week. Do you think that if I come back next Sunday, you're going to see that I have biceps like Arnold Schwarzenegger? What if I train very hard for this week? Like I promise, I can go there and I can do my best for 1 week. Next Sunday, you'll see. No? Okay, a lot of people are saying, no, you clearly don't know how the gym works. No, it's not like that. Okay, that's true. That's true. I know it's not like that. Because muscle takes time to grow and develop, right? And you have to be active. If I just go to the gym, let's say now for a full year, okay? And I just sit there on the bench, look at the equipment and say, oh, that's nice, that looks heavy, but I'm not gonna pick it up. But I'm going to the gym. I can tell my wife, yeah, I was at the gym every day for 1 hour. I just go there. And it's like, well, I don't see changes. It's like, well, you have to engage, right, with the equipment, with the machines. You have to suffer. You have to go through the pain to gain, right? So if God allows trials in your life to test you, imagine that He's bringing you to the gym. It's the gym of the trials. Now, you can choose to just stand there on a corner, sitting, look at the people, and just do nothing. Or you can choose to engage in the middle of the trials, the process, to make the most of that opportunity and say like, hey, you know what, I'm going to work on my character, my perseverance, my patience. And since God took me to the gym, to whatever trial you're going through, I'm going to make use of it. It's not going to be a wasted opportunity. I want to use it to grow my spiritual muscles, my virtues, patience, and fully develop that character that God wants. The equivalent of Arnold Schwarzenegger, but spiritual character. That would be Jesus, of course. What God wants to form in us is Jesus. As we've seen through this series in Romans 8, it says that God works all things for those who love Him for our good. And it's true, Pastor Brent explained, our good is not what we want. And they think, oh, this is what I want, so God is promised to work for my good. But what He's saying is He's forming the character of Christ in you through those suffering, through that pain. And trials are tools in the hands of God to create in us the character of Christ, if we let Him. Because if we just choose to sit there in a corner, He's not going to force us to do the workout, right? So the fruit is coming, but it takes time, maybe taking longer than you expect, but don't discourage. Don't be a sour orange. Don't waste the workout, and just produce fruit, and fruit in abundance. Third point that I'm going to go through is an encouragement. You are not alone. So trials have a purpose, and they also take time. But here's the good news. You do not have to go through it alone. I want you to think to your school days, back for a moment. We're going to show this picture. When you used to take regular tests, right, and exams, who among you liked taking tests and exams when you were at school? I know I did sometimes. Probably it depended on how much you studied the day before, right? How you felt about the test. But yes, when you go there are different type of tests. There are multiple, and that's called the open book test. where you are allowed to use you have the textbook, you have all your printed resources that you can access. And you think that, why? That seems like a paradox. How can I just use the book to the test? That doesn't seem fair. But it's because the teacher understands that the test is not in how much you are memorizing the content, but how you can apply the content in front of you to the questions that are being asked. And the tests that God puts us in, it's more like this type of test. It's not about like, do you remember this? Can you do this without help? It's not. No, here it's an open book test. You can use all your resources. You are actually encouraged to use all your resources available to you. And even more, it's not like an open book test, but it's like the teacher himself comes and sits beside you with his chair and it's like, hey, I'm here to help. Let me know when you need help and I can just help you. That's the test that we go through. Let's look at James 1:5. It says, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. You may need wisdom for a decision at work, for a difficult conversation with family, for a decision about house, living, selling, navigating relationships, maybe a medical situation. James says, ask God. In this case, it is not cheating to ask for help to the teacher. It is the wisest thing you can do. And that's what God is inviting you to do. And notice the language that James uses. God gives generously without finding fault. He's not going to say, hey, you should have figured this out by now. No, he does not reproach. He gives generously. He wants you to come and to ask, and he will give to you. But now James adds a condition in the next verses, 6 to 8. Thank you. It says, but when you ask, you must believe and no doubt. Because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. Now, I know this can feel intimidating because there is the mistake that we can make of reading this and thinking like, oh, my faith does not feel very strong right now. When I go through difficulties, I don't know, does that mean I shouldn't even bother praying? Because I have some doubts when I go through difficulties. Does God only hear people with perfect faith? And for that, I want to answer with a passage that you probably remember from Mark chapter 9. And there is a moment when a father brings his suffering son to Jesus and the disciples. And the father is desperate and says to Jesus, if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. Notice how the father is putting the responsibility on Jesus. If you can do anything, please help us. And Jesus turns it around and says, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. And immediately the father is like, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. He admits it's one of the most honest prayers that we can see. He does not pretend that his faith is rock solid. He comes with the little faith that he has, and he asks Jesus for help. And Jesus meets him in the gap, and he heals his son. So we're encouraged to do the same. When you go through trials, don't think like, oh, I have doubts. My faith is not that strong. Will God even listen to me? Just think of that story in Mark 9 and bring your little faith, even your doubts, to Jesus, and he will meet you there in the gap. Help my unbelief. And when you go through trials, remember, you're not alone. Even Jesus himself, if you remember in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he was about to go through the trial and the crucifixion, he prayed to God, and he was suffering. He was being tested. And if you remember, God sent an angel to strengthen him. Isn't that a curious thing? God, the Son of God, Jesus himself, and God gave him an angel to strengthen him. He asked God when he was going through suffering, through trial. He experienced that, and he is also the example for us. So you're not alone. God is with you. Jesus himself went through trials. And also look around you. You have a community of believers that are also going through sufferings, through challenges. We don't know the personal stories of each of us, but we can for sure know and take for granted that we all go through trials at different points in our lives. And in the book of James, we will continue to see along this book that faith is lived in the context of a community in practical ways. Faith is not merely believing in the existence of God. That's sometimes something we misunderstand when it says the testing of your faith is not merely, I believe in God, I'm a Christian. Because James will tell us just in a couple chapters later, well, you have faith, great, like good for you. But you know what? The demons have that type of faith as well. They believe in the existence of God. Actually, if you read the book of Job, they see God. They're there. In a sense, we could say, if faith is just merely believing in the existence of God, all the demons have more faith than us. They never doubt of the existence of God. They are terrified, says James. They tremble. But faith, especially in the context of James, is not just believing in the existence of something. It's putting your trust. It's not just believing in God, it's believing God that what He says is true. That you can depend on Him, that you can trust what He says, what He has for your life, even as you go through the valley of trials. We will see just in a moment, last verse also tells us something about faith. James also in the next verses at the end of this passage also reminds us that our circumstances are temporary. They're fleeting. He will continue to use those analogies like our life is like a mist that vanishes, chapter 4, verse 14, or a wildflower that quickly fades away, verse 10, when he's talking about the rich and the riches that they have. And let's go to the last verse as a conclusion. Verse 12, blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised those who love Him. So we're starting this morning with a paradox. How can we have joy in the middle of trials? Now we're ending with a blessing. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because that person will receive the crown of life that God gives, that God has promised to those who love Him. And you can see there how James is joining faith with love for God. He almost equates the two. He will give, if you pass the test of your faith, He will give the crown of life that He gives to those who love Him, because they are together united in this sense. So remember, there is purpose in your pain. God is producing fruit in you. He's taking you to the gym for a workout. It can be painful. You may feel sweaty, tired. You don't want to be there. And it takes time, right? But don't rush that process. Don't be too quickly to exit. Let your fruit mature and be complete and be fully ripe. Don't content yourself with producing just a sour orange, because that's not good for orange juice, like my wife can tell you. And last point, you are not alone. God is with you. He Himself went through trials. Jesus, He prayed. He was also strengthened. And He can understand. The book of Hebrews tells us how we have an intercessor, a mediator, Jesus, that also experienced all sort of trials. For the joy set before Him, He endured the cross. Notice that. It doesn't say Jesus rejoiced in the cross, in the suffering. He said, Isaiah 53, for the joy... it's actually Hebrews 12. For the joy set before Him, He endured the cross. What Isaiah 53 tells us is that He will see the fruit of His affliction and He will be satisfied. What is the fruit of Jesus' affliction? It's you and me being here, right? When He was suffering, when Jesus was hanging on the cross, suffering, He thought about you and me. That's what also helped Him carry through. The joy set before Him was us. that we will be together with him for eternity. And that's why he endured the cross. He gives us the example, and he is with us. So when you go through a trial, don't rush it. Remember, there is a purpose in your pain. Take your time. Don't be satisfied with an unripe fruit. And remember, Jesus is there with you. You're not alone. You also have a community of believers. And when you do need wisdom, it's not cheating to ask the teacher, okay? He says, if you need wisdom, which we all need wisdom, ask and God will give generously and without reproach. And there is a blessing waiting for us at the end, the crown of life, and we will all of us be there to thank God one day, okay? So let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this opportunity for us to open your word and to discover all this truth that help us when we do go through trials that can feel like it's painful, it's meaningful. Help us remember that there is a purpose. You went through trials, you are with us, and we do ask for wisdom. Whatever we are going through, that you give us wisdom to navigate these trials, that you give us patience and endurance to not rush the process, but produce in us the fruit that you want us to bear for you, that we may depend on you, that you give us strength, and that we can also look around us and help others that are in difficult circumstances. And we ask in your name, amen.